Good afternoon. Can I have everybody find their place and find their seats? We're going to get started. Konnichiwa. 皆さんありがとうございました。Thank you so much for every single one of you for coming and filling this wonderful space. My name is Miki Sankari. Some of you know me, some of you know me on all sides, my Japanese side and my American side. I have been kind of the behind-the-scenes organizer in this whole JAJAJA community here. And some of you will be hearing about the JAJAJA community from our panel of speakers, our the primary speakers up here on the podium. And I will be the MC for the afternoon. So I just wanted to go over some of the housekeeping items. So as you'll see, in front of you, we've created a program, a booklet for a guide for you to start building home away from home. And if you have already done that already, then it's a place for you to jot down some of your notes and pieces of wisdom. But there's also in the front pages, in bilingual, both Japanese and English, bios of our speakers, the whole context of our summit, building home away from home, the women's work from Homemaker to Careerbuilder. That theme has been resonated throughout all of us being here today, and I think this is a great space for all of us to work together and discuss and really connect with each other. And we've got a wonderful program here today to allow us to do that. And the other thing that I'd love to point to is that you all have checked in and you've all have selected a sticker, right? So one of the stickers is indicating that you're an English primary speaker. Another sticker is indicating that you're a Japanese primary speaker. And another one, the Hello Kitty one, is indicating that you're a bilingual speaker. So if I can have everybody just quickly raise their hands that are bilinguals. Oh, okay, so it's majority of the room. But now you know that you're sitting around someone who can help right off the bat on standby translations. So primarily our program today is going to be spoken in English, but we do want to acknowledge and want to be inclusive, and so we have a lot of our programming material in Japanese. And so we've also printed out the Q&A portion of our panels all in Japanese as well, so you can follow along. Before I pass it on to our first speaker, I do want to thank all of our sponsors and our partner organizations, especially all of the task force members. I am a representative of the U.S.-Japan Council, and we'll have Marissa Nakamura-san come up and talk more about that. And so thank you for the U.S.-Japan Council for allowing me to represent. And the government of Japan, we've got the Deputy Consul General of Japan here, Murakami-san, here as well as a part of our panel of speakers. And then, of course, the Lehigh University Asian Studies Program and Professor Kiri Lee for being the okasan to see it all through and all the details and all of that. So really, we wouldn't have this space without the Asian Studies Program, so please feel free to reach out to the corresponding people. And then, of course, you see Itoen bottles. Thank you to Itoen and actually Julie Ozuma and Sophie Spiegel for driving from Brooklyn and delivering the Itoen bottles. Really thank you for all of that. And as you can see, some of us have name tags that are printed. Those are your JAJAJA task force members, and though they have all been a part of this amazing summit and made it possible, because there is no way that one person can do it all. It really does take a village and a community that really cares. So please acknowledge them, thank them, and ask them if you have any questions. But primarily this summit is for all of us to get to know one another. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our first keynote speaker, Cheryl Matherly. She is the Vice President of International Affairs at Lehigh University. I have a special connection with her. We've met through the Tomodachi Initiative, which is an initiative out of the U.S.-Japan Council. And because of her support and her heart as a Japanese aficionado, we've been developing a great relationship. So I'd love to welcome her up to the stage.
Konnichiwa. Lehigh JAJAJA Yokoso. Deputy General Murakami, it is my great honor to welcome you here to Lehigh University. And I also want to extend my appreciation to all that were involved with the organization of this, and extend my appreciation to the U.S.-Japan Council for supporting an event like this, an opportunity for this kind of cooperation. I do know that there was a task force that was involved with the organization, and as someone who organizes a lot of events for the university, I appreciate the magnitude of this work, so thank the task force to that. And appreciate also that my colleagues in the Asian Studies Department were co-sponsors to this. I think that's important. And I also want to recognize Mickey for having the vision that there would be a need for a program like this in the Lehigh Valley. And as Mickey said, our first encounter was just shortly after you had moved here. We were hosting a program that was funded through the Tomodachi Initiative, and I remember getting a call from someone with the foundation saying, you know, there's somebody with the U.S.-Japan Council living here in Bethlehem. I thought, really? Since then, it's just been wonderful to really think about and promote all things Japan to that. I'm hoping that as I welcome you to campus, you'll permit me to be just a little bit personal for a moment. I really love working in Japan, and I love promoting Japan to our students. And it really goes back to the fact that my work in international education in many ways owes the beginning to the work that I did in Japan. Many years ago, I lived in Houston, Texas, and I worked at Rice University. And at the time, Rice, and still is, very involved with a number of programs in Japan. And because of that, I was invited by the consulate there to be involved with interviews for the JET program, the Japan English Teaching Program, JET program. And so for about 12 years, I worked very closely with the consulate there to interview prospective JETs and help send lots of U.S. college graduates off to work in Japan. And through that, I got to know really the power of a program like that, and also understand and have a chance to also experience U.S.-Japanese educational cooperation. Following that, I had the opportunity then to pursue many other areas there of work in Japan. I was fortunate that in the early 2000s, I had a Fulbright grant that permitted me the opportunity to spend a good portion of a year studying issues in Japanese higher education, and then later was involved with the National Science Foundation funded program that over about 13 years we were able to send about 140 U.S. students to work with Japanese universities, and in return also had a reciprocal program where we received about 75 Japanese students to come work in U.S. research groups. And in all of that, really came to appreciate the importance of U.S.-Japanese educational cooperation. And in many ways, I think that work that I did there was really formative in how I think now about the importance of educational exchange and educational cooperation. At Lehigh, we do have a very long history of working with Japanese institutions. We currently have institutional partnerships with 5 different Japanese universities, sending students to participate in everything from short study abroad experiences to longer research experiences. We have faculty who maintain deep research collaborations in Japan. We teach Japanese language. And each year we host high school students who come from Japan for programs focused on leadership development coming through our Ayakoka Institute. So it's perhaps then a very natural next step that we would be thinking about how Lehigh can be involved with the Japanese community here in the Lehigh Valley. And so I think this idea of a JAJAJA group is really a natural extension then of the kind of engagements that Lehigh has helped drive to now being an opportunity for how we can do that and extend into the larger Lehigh Valley. And so with that, I will say I am thrilled to be able to call myself one of the JAs, the Japanese aficionados. And very pleased that Lehigh gets to play a role with the theme of this particular conference of how to build a home away from home. And I hope that everybody who is here understands that Lehigh is very much part of that home here in the Valley. I'd now like to take a moment to introduce our speaker. I had just came from just a delightful lunch where I had an opportunity to meet and get to know Mr. Kenju Murakami. Murakami-san is the Deputy Consul General of Japan and is based in New York. This is his second tour in New York, although this time, and you said, only been just arrived in November, or in August rather, so still very new to the post. But I will say selfishly that means that he's going to be in the post for a little while, and so much of our conversation also circled around to the next opportunity for him to be back here in the Lehigh Valley and visit with us for a longer time. He has a bachelor's in law from the University of Tokyo, an LLM and an MA from the University of Michigan, and importantly is a major Michigan football fan. And so with that, it is indeed my great honor and privilege to invite Murakami-san up to say a few words.
Thank you, Cheryl, for a wonderful introduction. Good afternoon to you all, and 日なるおはようございます。こんにちは。And first of all, thank you, Miki, for organizing such a great occasion and for inviting me. And congratulations from the bottom of my heart for this auspicious occasion of the establishment of this great organization, JAJAJA. Oh, okay, yeah. So today I'm gonna speak briefly about the perspective of the Japan-U.S. relations, but the all-important organizer Miki has told me repeatedly that I have to speak within 10 minutes. Actually, I can speak well over 30-40 minutes, but today, because of the constraint of time, I will try to keep it in 10 minutes. But I'm ready to talk about the rest of the story in the free time or the afterwards. Yeah, this is just the snapshots of Japan-U.S. relations from the top level to grassroots level, economics and politics, even security or high tech or music. And if we use the one word which describes the Japan-U.S. relationship, it's a cornerstone. Like the Japan-U.S. alliance, the cornerstone of Japan's diplomacy and security. This is the word of the Prime Minister in his most recent speech in the Japanese Parliament. And our modern relations between the two countries began in 1853 when, as you know, the four black ships of Commodore Perry appeared on the coast of Yokohama, and those old-fashioned and also modern-fashioned delegates visited the U.S. Oh, by the way, exactly 160 years ago, first delegation of Japan with the samurai and chomage visited the Washington D.C., Philadelphia, and New York, and they marched on the main street of those cities. And so next year is the 160th years after that first march of Japanese delegation. So in New York, we are planning to organize the first ever Japan parade next May on the occasion of the annual Japan Day. It's the second Sunday of May, the Mother's Day, May 10th. So any of you are interested in joining the parade? Yeah, I think Miki should also be interested in that. Please contact us. Well, just briefly, Philadelphia, the first centennial exhibit is the first ever occasion for Japan to join the International Expo. And those three figures all appear or soon to appear in Japanese bills and notes. Tsuda Umeko, she is the founder of the most prestigious women's university in Japan. She learned in college, Bryn Mawr College, suburbs of Philadelphia. Dr. Hideo Noguchi first came to an institute in Philadelphia. And the Nitobe Inazo, who is a great thinker, he even married to a woman from Philadelphia. So all those pioneers of Japanese civilizations are somehow connected to this region of the state. And maybe some familiar faces, and those numbers are the years when those guys visited Japan or the U.S. Even Babe Ruth, 1934. And today is the 8th of December in Japan. It's a Pearl Harbor Day for you, 7th of December. That's a very difficult part of history, but 1945. General MacArthur came to Japan and liberalized and modernized Japan. And this gentleman, Yoshida Shigeru, jump-started the Japanese economy and also introduced the Japan-US alliance. And this is the economy, Japan, the economy dramatically improved in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But after the 90s, it's more like, flat. And the good old days of the 1980s, top companies of the world, 7 out of 10 are Japanese companies in market capitalization. But 2019, nothing appears from Japan in top 10. The highest one is Toyota, 40th. But when it comes to innovation index, this is one of them. Japan is located in a fairly nice place. And today, just talk briefly about the challenge of Japanese society, that is the rapidly aging society. This is the so-called population pyramid of 1960s, the height of the economic growth area. It's a very healthy, lots of younger generation back in 1960s. The baby boomer is around the teenagers. And right now, those baby boomers are in the 70s, and a huge population in the years 70 years old. And my generation is the kind of the second generation of the baby boomers, 40s and 50s. that's already quite a challenging situation when it comes to social security or welfare. But in the year 2050, horrors, the majority, more than half of the population are, the 40s, and the 1/3 of the population is retirement age. So that's going to be a huge challenge for Japan, both in terms of fiscal and also social. So what is the solution? Oops. First, the women's role. Women's labor participation traditionally low, but as you see, this blue one is Japan. So gradually picking up recently for the past 20 years. And also on the bottom right, notorious M curve. That means that the women of the age of the child rearing drops out of the employment. But that is gradually being modified, no longer the kind of strict M. And in some sectors, this is the members of parliament, U.S. Senate, and Japan's House of Councillors, Sangin, the upper house. In the most recent elections, quite a few Japanese female lawmakers were elected. So gradually picking up. But maybe you have noticed in today's, especially the electronic version of the New York Times, that talked about the situation of the University of Tokyo, my school. Still, the number of female students hovering around 20%. When I joined the university 25 years ago, still 20% as well. So no increase. That is kind of a challenge. But another good hope is that my company, Gaibusho, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, next year we're going to have the 30 new entrants for senior level diplomats. But out of 30, 16, more than 50% are female. So gradually, I think the more women are coming into the Japanese society. And another is the making better usage of the workers from abroad. Japan is long considered to be a closed labor market, but no more. If you have recently visited Tokyo, almost all the restaurants and convenience stores are served by foreign workers. And this is the most recent initiative by the government, specified skilled workers. It is a euphemism, but we open more sectors to foreign laborers like the manufacturing or agriculture. So that is the effort of Japan. And I don't have the slide. It's another is the use of technology like the computer and the 5G to compensate for the lack of labor force, especially in the rural area, in construction or medical. There is another effort. And here's the quiz. 14, 32, and 5. And what do you think this number means? Well, probably you have no clues, no wonder. But this is the number of the summit meetings between the Prime Minister Abe and President Trump. Well, 14 is the face-to-face summit meetings for the past 2 years and a half. And the 32 is the telephone conversation. And finally 5 is the number of golf played together. So this means that the two gentlemen are in very good terms. This is, quite unique because the President Trump has difficult terms with many of the foreign leaders, but somehow our leader Abe has maintained good terms with the President Trump. And a little bit of the economy, and the most recent one is the trade pact between the two countries. Maybe you have recently heard, but the Japanese parliament had just recently approved it, so it will go into effect soon. And also a digital trade agreement, and this is the signing ceremony. There are lots of representatives of U.S. farming sector, and they are all in good smiles. And this is the Japan has been notorious for its for trade deficit, but that was true back in 1990s when I studied at the University of Michigan. I felt some pressure, Japanese cars over the fall of the U.S. industry, but not anymore. Japan's trade deficit has dramatically decreased, and right now China is far ahead, followed by Mexico, Germany, and then Japan. And also Japan contributes a lot for the investment. Japan-US investment far more than US-Japan investment, although we have lots of US manufacturing in Japan as well. And also Japan contributes a lot in terms of employment. I'm glad that the Olympus is a big footprint in this area. So it's a very rushed into, finally the state-by-state employment. Unfortunately, in the state of Pennsylvania, Japan is number 4 when it comes to jobs created by foreign companies, but in the state of Ohio or Alabama or Tennessee, Kentucky, they're all Japanese car factories. And in those places, Japan are either number 1 or number 2 foreign job creators. So it's been a very rushed speech, but I think this has given you the rough picture of Japan-US relations, and I'm happy to answer questions. So how many minutes are left?
3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes. All right. Okay, yeah, so this is the Sakura Festival in Philadelphia, and also the beautiful Japanese house in Shofuso in Philadelphia. And I just saw the beautiful tea house in the center of the town. So I'm very much looking forward to deepening the ties between Japan and the Lehigh Valley area, and our consulate maintain the Facebook and Twitter, so please visit us, and thank you very much. So if you have any questions, please raise a hand, or maybe we can chat afterwards, but a couple of questions. Oh, you don't have to follow the Japanese custom of keeping quiet in this kind of setting. Come on, this is America.
If there's no further questions, they can find you in the break.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, thank you very much. And again, congratulations on the establishment of JAJAJA here. And again, my gratitude goes to Mickey and friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Murakami-san. We will continue on with the program. I will be strict with the time, but our next guest is Marissa Nakamura, and she has graciously provided us with a video that will give you a quick overview of the U.S.-Japan Council.
The U.S.-Japan Council. We strengthen U.S.-Japan relations by bringing together diverse leaders and empowering the next generation. USJC believes in the power of people-to-people relations. We design programs and events to bring a network of individuals of different backgrounds, regions, generations, and interests. Founded and guided by Japanese-American leaders, USJC has grown to include hundreds of members throughout the United States and Japan. The strength of USJC comes from these leaders who are committed to shaping U.S.-Japan relations. They represent every sector from government to business to civil society. We celebrate diversity with the belief it adds richness to innovation and thought. The annual Japanese-American Leadership Delegation brings together established professionals to exchange ideas with Japanese political, business, and academic leaders. The Asian American Leadership Delegation Program brings together elected officials from diverse regions to broaden U.S.-Japan relations at the state level. USJC also supports gender diversity, providing mentorship and inspiring women and men to create supportive environments in and out of the workplace. We conduct a range of programs throughout the United States and Japan, including those focused on regional collaboration. Each fall, Our annual conference invites Japanese and Americans to collaborate and discuss key issues affecting the future of U.S.-Japan relations. This future rests on the shoulders of young leaders. The Tomodachi Initiative invests in the next generation through educational and cultural exchanges and leadership programs. This public-private partnership, led by USJC and the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, with support from the government of Japan, was founded in the aftermath of the Great East Japan earthquake in 2011. Today, it involves tens of thousands of participants with a network of alumni who go on to found companies, lead initiatives, and mentor young people. The Tomodachi Emerging Leaders Program identifies and empowers a new generation to build upon the legacy of courageous Japanese-American pioneers. It enables Japanese Americans to continue to play a central role in the future of U.S.-Japan relations. The Toshizo Watanabe Study Abroad Scholarship Program, funded by a generous endowment gift, provides financial assistance to Japanese and American undergraduate and graduate students studying abroad. The Silicon Valley Japan Platform, a USJC partnership with the Asia Pacific Initiative, also invests in the future. SVJP connects tech visionaries and entrepreneurs with the next generation of innovators. By inspiring leaders to work together, the U.S.-Japan Council builds a strong and enduring relationship between the people of the United States and Japan. Connect with us, get involved, join the network.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm the Membership and Regional Coordinator for the U.S.-Japan Council, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more information on USJC, who is a supporter of this event, and give you a little bit more background on the Regional Women in Leadership Program, which is one of USJC's initiatives for women. As noted in the video, we connect diverse leaders to create strong relationships between the U.S. and Japan, and we do this through various programs and initiatives. And here's just some key activities of USJC that was noted in the video, and some of our leadership programs. This summit is part of the Regional Women in Leadership Program, or RWL. USJC is committed to bringing gender diversity in and out of the workplace. This summit is generously funded by MOFA, or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. RWL is now in its 5th year. We create conversations about women in leadership, the advancement of women, and fostering people-to-people relationships in cities where they may not have a consulate, which is why Bethlehem, Pennsylvania was a great candidate for this. Past topics have included womenomics, how to promote women's leadership, the changing workforce and challenges that women face. And if you see below, here are some past cities that have also hosted RWL, and that includes Little Rock, Oakland, Michigan, Salt Lake City, Arizona, and many more. Because I work in membership, I would like to plug a little bit of USJC. We're always looking for good members who are committed to strengthening the relationship between the U.S. and Japan. Our members come from different backgrounds, sectors, and generations. Some of our benefits include having access to our leadership programs and member-only events and discounts at annual conference, and really just having a sense of community. And then here's just some information about how you can become a member, and it's a nomination process. And if you have some more questions, you can ask me about it. Here's a list of our sponsors. We're generously funded through various sponsors. And that's it. And if you're interested in learning more about USJC, feel free to come up to me after the summit or during the summit. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Marissa. So all of you, if there's any questions, of course you can come to me or Marissa. It's been a wonderful experience for me to be a part of the USJC because of all of my travels, moving from city to city to city, being part of a network that is international and so much a part of what home means to me. The U.S.-Japan network, or the U.S.-Japan Council network, has been a family that I've found and chosen to be a part of. So please feel free to ask tons of questions about it, because there's so many ways that young people and of all generations can be a part of. All right, so speaking of young people and portraits of individuals and their stories, we have a featuring panel today of it's called The Portraits of Japan in the Lehigh Valley. And we have a representation of the 3 different JAs, the JAJAJA, the Japanese in America, the Japanese American, and the Japanese aficionado on our panel here today. So if I can welcome Neil Lloyd, Samina Forbath, and Joe Narkovic to the panel table right here. We'll start to our panel discussion. So before we begin, this panel is going to be primarily a discussion, but it's organized in 3 different questions. There will be the first 2 questions being answered by all 3 of the panelists, and then the 3rd question is a specific question catered to the panel. And as you can see, when you did check in, there are handouts that are just printed in Japanese. So if you're a primary Japanese speaker, please feel free to follow along. And if there's any questions, please feel free to talk to your bilingual friend next to you. So let's begin. I want to make sure that you all know each of our panelists, so we've asked them to prepare a short introduction, and then we'll go on to the first question. So Mio-san, would you like to start?
Hi, my name is Mio Lloyd. I'm a wife to an American husband, Doug, and mother of 2 teenagers, Mia and Liam. Mia has just entered university in Japan and is enjoying a life of adventure as a college student. Liam is a junior in Silicon Valley High School. Our family moved from Japan to the US in 2006. Back then, Mia was only 4 years old and Liam is 2 years old. Once my kids started middle school, I founded 2 faith-based organizations. We also established a publisher in Japan in 2015. At home, our family commonly speaks in Japanese, since we don't want our children to lose the language. So that is why speaking in English and putting my thoughts together and expressing them is still a big challenge for me. 皆さんよろしくお願いします。Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. No? Yes? No? Perfect. My name is Samina Forbath. I am a senior at Lehigh University, double majoring in mechanical engineering and Japanese. My mom is from Shizuoka, Japan, and my dad is from America, so I'm Japanese American. I grew up in Los Angeles, which is a very heavy Japanese American community, and moved to here for school. And my family recently moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, so that's home right now.
Hi, my name is Joe. I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area. I spent some time living in Japan. I participated in the JET program shortly after I graduated from school. I lived in Totori-ken for 4 years. Since coming back to America, I've lived in Bethlehem. I work for a local company called the Stonehouse Group. I'm a mechanical engineer. And I also work with the Bethlehem Tondabayashi Sister City Commission. Bethlehem, as some of you know, has a sister city in Japan. It's called Tondabayashi. It's in the greater Osaka area, We've been sister cities for 55 years. I'm currently serving as the chairperson of the commission, and we have a lot of great activities that we do every year, an exchange program, Cherry Blossom Festival. If you'd like to learn more about it, you can talk to me later. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists, for your introduction. So we'll start with our first question, and this is to Mio-san. What are your challenges you face as a mother building a home away from home?
First, I couldn't make any friends for 6 months after we moved to this country. In the area we live, many people's families have lived in the area for generations, so they don't really understand the feelings of people who are new. Once my children and I were waiting for the school bus outside on a snowy day for 30 minutes. Nobody told me that there was a school delay. We didn't know the school system in the US. Other challenges I faced were experiences that would unlikely happen in Japan. Unlikely happen if we lived in Japan. I wasn't raised in the US, so I needed wisdom for each case. For example, when my daughter was in first grade, some classmates made a song that made fun of the shape of my daughter's eyes. I was shocked. I had to convince her that she's very special and beautiful, and that each one of us is very unique and special, and that difference is actually a great and awesome thing. In another case, when my son was maybe in about 5th or 6th grade, they learned about World War II in school. They learned about what Japanese soldiers did to the US and Asian countries. One of his friend's mother, who is Chinese, called me and said, my son was so afraid and hurt by the things that the Japanese people did in the past to the Chinese people. He's saying, Mom, I'm so scared of the Japanese and they might attack us again. We can't believe any Japanese. So my son and I decided to visit them to talk to him right away. I had to apologize to him for what our forefathers did to Chinese people and other nations, even though I didn't do those things. I told him that we didn't agree with doing those terrible things to other people, and wars always bring negative consequences. But we shouldn't allow these mistakes from the past to divide our friendship. We can learn from the mistakes, and we can voice that it would never happen in the future. This boy is my son's best friend still to this day, and his mom is a good friend of mine. I learned about communication is very important. Another time, I made a mistake by giving a hamburger to my daughter's friend whose parents are Hindu. For them, cows are sacred, but I fed her beef. So I had to apologize to them. Fortunately, they were a moderate Hindu family, so they forgave me. I realized that you cannot be ignorant and live in a global world. We need to open our hearts towards the people groups who are different from us and need to have an attitude to learn from each other and honor each other. We have to expand our view and values in a broader way.
Thank you, Mio-san. All right, then Samina-chan, what are the challenges you face as a Japanese American building home away from home?
So I have been at Lehigh for more than 3 years, and I met very few people who share the same multiracial identity as me. And as a result, there's sort of a part of me that I haven't connected with for a very long time. You know, when you meet someone that really have the same connections, you can really share that part of you. And because of that, I've sometimes lost that part of me throughout these 3 years. And also as a student, you oftentimes focus a lot more attention on education, which you should, but also other extracurriculars, so I've spent less time on my multiracial identity. And I feel like that is a challenge that so many college students face. Even if you don't have to be moving far away from home, but you're entering a whole new community that there's so many people around you that are different from you. And don't necessarily share the same experiences as you. And you're also in college, you're supposed to be spending a lot of time on your education. But I can tell you that as a senior, you can get through those challenges, and it is possible.
Thank you, Samina. And then Joe, what are the challenges you face as a Japanese aficionado building home away from home?
So you can see I'm a white dude from Pennsylvania, so I don't face exactly the same challenges that my fellow panelists have faced. But as someone who has lived abroad and even moved to within Pennsylvania itself, it's a challenge to come to a new community and really establish roots there and establish a second home there. As Mia was saying, a lot of the people in the Lehigh Valley have lived here for many generations, and it's hard to break into that, especially with today's culture being very social media based. You can pick and choose who you interact with virtually from anywhere, anytime, and you can just surround yourself in a silo of your own beliefs and your own interests day and night. And it's really hard to break into that and to form friends in real life. I've lived here for 8 years since coming back from JET, and I still only have a couple of good friends. Especially difficult as someone who is very interested in Japanese culture to connect with that community here, because there's not a lot of Japanese cultural events, there's not a large Japanese population or a Japanese American population. So it's really challenging in that respect too. And when I came, the first thing I found was a sushi restaurant meetup group, which is about as Japanese as you can get around here. It's not great, but it's a start. And through that, I eventually met more people who were interested in Japan. I found the Sister City Commission, and I've been able to get involved with that. But it can be a challenge for anybody, no matter who you are.
Thank you for sharing that, Joe. All right, we'll move on to the second question. How do you balance retaining a part of your heritage culture in your adopted culture? Mio-san, dozo.
Since we didn't want them to think that studying Japanese was yet another task on top of their schoolwork, our children didn't go to Japanese school in the US. But we do speak both Japanese and English. So we encourage our kids to read lots of Japanese books and good comic book, such as Doraemon. That's how my children learn to read kanji. Our family enjoys watching NHK TV dramas and good family-oriented animation together. Once a year, we visited my family in Japan. I heard when a Japanese-American half-girl was bullied at school, her mom told her not to tell other kids that she is half Japanese. I don't want my children to think that way. They inherited the double portion, so actually they are doubly blessed. Let me say that again. You are doubly blessed. This only applies to my family, but we don't care so much about rigidly applying orthodox Japanese tradition and Japanese convention because it doesn't benefit people from other nations. But we love the general Japanese culture of honoring others, politeness, and sensitivity to accuracy and subtlety. When they make something like cooking and craft work, it's so detailed. And these gifts of Japanese will benefit people from other nations too. I would like my children to inherit those beauties of Japanese culture. I would like my children to also inherit the positive characteristics of America. Americans are bold, courageous, passionate, and that they can speak and express their opinions clearly without fear of what other people think. Volunteer activities are thriving, and the US is ranked 4th in the World Giving Index, and Japan is ranked 124th, the worst of G7 countries. So we would like our kids to inherit this kind of spirit of generosity and compassion that we find in the US.
Thank you, Mio-san.
to clarify, I consider my heritage culture as being both Japanese and American. In my entire life, I've struggled to embrace both as my own, but I think I've come to the point where they're both mine. My adopted culture is American. By growing up in America, going to American schools, and essentially living my entire life here. And I balance the two through my family and through my fiance's family too. He's exactly the same as me. His mom is Japanese, his dad is American, and I see through both of our families how both cultures can be blended together beautifully. I was actually, I went home for Thanksgiving and both of our families came together. It was amazing. We had turkey on the table and traditional side dishes, but then also inari sushi. And all the kids were speaking Japanese. And all you have like the dads speaking American, but then the Japanese moms were like talking together in Japanese. And it was beautiful to watch that. And every time I go home, I get this explosion of my heritage culture. And it kind of, throughout my years here, every time I go home, I get that. And I'm so grateful because it carries me through when I come home, when I come here to Lehigh. And every time I come home, I get like recharged with this heritage culture. So I'm incredibly grateful for them.
Thank you, Samina-chan. どうぞ、じゃあ。
So again, I don't have the same biological connection to Japan that the other panelists do. So I'm representing the Japanese aficionados. But I think that when I was living in Japan, I really connected there on a personal level, like my values, my interests, my morals. I really felt like Japan was a second home to me, living in Tottori. And for me, it's been a challenge to retain that adopted culture when I came back to America. I think it's great that Samina can visit her family and Mio has her family. For me, I don't have that same exact way to recharge my tank periodically. So for me, it's more of doing little things on my own in private, like talk to myself in Japanese when I'm at home, or read Japanese books, or watch Japanese TV shows. It's been really great getting involved with the Sister City Commission because it allows me not only to maintain my connection with Japan, but to share that with the entire Bethlehem community. Since I started working with the Sister City Commission 6 years ago, although the commission itself has been involved and the Sister City has been around for 55 years, in the past couple of years, we've really tried to expand beyond our student exchange program, which is still the linchpin of what we do, but we've added, we do a Cherry Blossom Festival every year in April now. One of the other members and I were teaching Japanese classes at the local library, which we do periodically. And so we're really, I'm really enjoying this way that I can take what I love about Japan and share it with everybody. And that's why I'm really happy that JAJAJA has gotten started, and really grateful to Mickey for doing all this, because I think this is another way for me and for everyone to help experience and share our love of Japan.
Thank you, Joe. All right, and here we go with the three questions individually catered to each of our panelists. So Mio-san, what are your dreams for your daughter as a hafu, multiracial Japanese American?
The other day, my daughter called me and said, "Mom, I really enjoy life in Japan. Quality of life is very good. And I'm busy and my classes are hard, but I enjoy grocery shopping, enjoy cooking, and enjoy doing things for myself. I think I will stay in Japan after I graduate." I was surprised to hear that. Of course, I missed her very much, but I was very happy to hear that. My dream is that my daughter finds the purpose of her life and accomplishes it. I believe it will be connected to the things she likes to do and her skills. We may not know what the purpose is now, but We do know that each of us is born with a purpose. Whatever it is, I want her to fulfill the purpose of her life. It has nothing to do with the happiness that the world thinks of. I believe she will use her gift of being multicultural, Japanese and American, and living in an international environment. She can help bridge the gap between different countries and different groups of people. That's my dream for her.
ありがとうございます。And then Samina-chan, what kind of advice or support are you looking for as a Japanese American woman starting her career and family?
My mom raised my sister and I to embrace both cultures. And she did that by implementing bits and pieces of Japanese culture into our lives. Like making little bento boxes, but then she'd use like ham sandwiches and cut them precisely and make like little vegetable like cuttings. All my friends were incredibly jealous of my lunches. It was great. So we grew up knowing that both cultures were very important to us. And I am studying mechanical engineering. I want a career, and I'm so excited for that, but I'm also excited to start a family, which will be very far in the future, but that's something that my fiance and I both want to do. But I also we both want to include both cultures into our family. But whatever that looks like, we don't know that yet. But I feel immense pressure to be able to do that as the mother figure in the future. And I don't know how my mom did it. And she was a stay-at-home mom. And I'm battling with the question of, I want to be a career mom, but I also want to achieve this daunting task of bringing both cultures into my family. And how do I do that when my mom probably had more time than I will? So if anyone has the answer, I'm not sure, but or who has experienced the advice that I hope to sort of gain is, how do you do it? Even though that's very broad, but how do you work with your partner to do that? Or even your family, and do it in a way that it happens naturally and just beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Samina-chan. I feel the same way. I think there's a lot of us here that also feel the same way as becoming mothers and becoming career builders. It's a challenge that we all face. Thank you for sharing. All right, Joe, what is your organization's role in contributing to the success of women in the workplace, community, and the home?
Well, on the Sister City Commission, it's not our explicit goal to empower women, but I think we actually do quite a lot of that just as a natural byproduct of our activities. Our main event every year is a 3-week homestay program, either bringing Japanese students, usually high school or college freshmen, to do a homestay in Bethlehem for 3 weeks, or we send students from Bethlehem to do a homestay in our sister city, Tonobayashi, for 3 weeks. And for students who go from here in Bethlehem to Japan, I think it's a great opportunity. You know, many of our applicants are female students, and I think it's great to send them overseas because in today's society, in today's economy, you really have to have that global awareness, as Mio-san was alluding to earlier. And I think that, you know, giving these young women that opportunity that we can do, I think it's great for their future prospects in learning about other cultures and becoming functional in today's age. And then on the other side, for the Japanese students who come to visit Bethlehem, again, they tend to mostly be female. And as Murakami-san alluded to earlier, you know, Japan has made a lot of strides in recent years in terms of women's empowerment and women being included in the economic sphere, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think it's a great opportunity to bring young Japanese women to America, where even though we still have work that can be done in women's empowerment, we're further along than Japan is. And I think it's a great opportunity to show those young Japanese women that, you know, married women don't have to retire from their jobs when they have babies. And women can be breadwinners in a family just like men can be. And these things that are much more common in America than they are in Japan. And our hope is that these young Japanese women can take those lessons back with them and use that to push development in their home country as well.
Thank you, Joe. So I expect all of you to reach out to Joe and be a part of our sister city commission here in the local Bethlehem city here. So I want to open it up for Q&A. We're looking good on time, so thank you everybody for being on time and being cognizant of our very packed and very fulfilled summit so far. So we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A, so please feel free to raise your hands, don't be shy, and yonaku, onegai shimasu. Anything? Anything? No? Oh, go ahead.
Sure.
You want to introduce yourself with your name and...
Sure. Hello, my name is Scott. I lived in Taunton, Shizuoka, Japan for 4 years. And so my question is for Neil. When you came to the U.S., did you ever feel like you wanted to go back?
Yes, to be honest with you, yes. First year was very difficult, and I felt depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get through it?
It's church. The church family really helped me a lot. Yes. And also there's some Japanese community, Japanese people, and it really helped me too.
Maybe for Mio-san, there are Hoshuko and Saturday school available in the area, but you decided to keep them close and teach them Japanese. Can you share a little bit about that and how your daughter is now in school and loving it, and so it's a huge success, so I'd love for you to share that.
日本語でいいですか？
いいよ。
英語の勉強も割と大変なので、その上に英語の勉強っていうプレッシャーをかけたくなかったので、うちは家で日本語を楽しんで勉強するように努力をしました。クモンのワークブックで夏休みに勉強したり、あと家では日本語を話して、私の主人が日本語を話せるので、家では日本語を話しました。あとテレビと漫画と本をいっぱいに読むようにさせました。
So did you, or how did Mia-chan decide to apply to a Japanese university instead of to?
Yeah, she always say that in the U.S. she feel like she's not enough American in the U.S. When she goes to Japan, she feels she's not, enough Japanese. So, それで学校が、sorry、ちゃんぽん学校が白人の人が多い学校だったんですね。それで彼女の中でアイデンティティがアジアのアイデンティティがすごく強くなってきて、そしてそれを自分でもっと欲しいっていうふうに思うようになったみたいなんですね。それで日本に行って、その半分、日本人の半分を埋めたいという気持ち、パッションが湧いてきて、アメリカの学校は幼稚園から高校まで行って、アメリカはいっぱい。で、この日本足りない部分を日本の大学でいっぱい埋めてこようっていう気持ちになったっていう感じです。
That's great. So I don't know if some of our primary English speakers, to paraphrase, she was saying that her daughter living and growing up in Hellertown was been going to school in a primarily Caucasian school environment, she really felt that she was identified as Asian American. And so her American side was very much already covered by just living in this area. And so she felt that need to fulfill and fill her Japanese side a little bit more. And so it became a point of attraction, and whether it's the Kumon books or the Doraemon manga, that's the way that she's been at home fulfilling her Japanese side, but she wanted more of that. So she decided to study and applied for a Japanese university and recharge and refill her Japanese side. And yeah, is that about it? Any other questions? Cheryl?
One of the things that I'm struck by in listening to this is how wearing my hat as Lehigh about all the things that we have happening through the university with our connections to Japan, and a disconnect to here that a community where there's not that where there is a need, and it seems that we've not connected with that community. I would be very interested in our panelists, and we've got someone who's deeply enmeshed in the Lehigh community and part of this too, to talk about what might be ways that the university, with our commitment to global engagement, our partners, and seeing ourselves as being part of the community, what are some ways that the university could really be a contributor to supporting our JAJAJA community here in the Lehigh Valley? I stumped the panel.
Well, I think one of the other things, I'll just share this quick anecdote. Besides sushi meetup, when I came here, one of the other things that I did, somehow I just was looking around and I searched Lehigh's website. I figured they probably have some Japanese professors at Lehigh, and I connected with Taniguchi sensei. And for a year or two, even though I was not a student, I would come to her after class Japanese conversation club to just chat with the students and practice my Japanese and kind of keep that connection alive. So I'm not suggesting that would be open to the public or anything, but if the university could sponsor or organize other sort of Japanese cultural events, I don't know what the Japanese community is like at Lehigh, if there's a lot of Japanese students, but if you're in a position to sort of take the lead on some of those things, even if it's just making some space available or putting up flyers around campus or anything like that, really.
That's a big question. As a student, I'm not sure if it's because I'm a studyaholic. I study a lot, and my life is the university. Whenever I go off campus, to be honest, I don't go off campus a lot. And I wasn't even aware that there was across the bridge I could get a taste of Japan by going to the tea house. Yes. I didn't know that it existed. And as a senior, I'm like, wow, I wish I did, because I could just take a small break, walk, and just kind of get recharged. So helping, if there is a way, I'm not sure what that way is, but connecting students with other organizations outside of Lehigh, because I didn't even know that there was. I was so unaware, and it wasn't until the JAJAJA, this community, that I became aware of that. And free food, I guess. College students love free food.
Maybe we have time for one more question. Okay. No burning questions? That's okay. And speaking of free food, we have a wonderful,
Can you expand on the sister city in Japan you said was in Osaka? That's for Joe?
Yeah, so about 60 years ago or so, Ellen and I were just telling this story to Murakami-san earlier, so it's fresh in my mind. But about 60 years ago, there was a minister from Bethlehem who had a connection with a Christian minister in Tonabayashi, and this Tonabayashi minister said, "Hey, you know, our city is looking for a sister city." And the guy from Bethlehem said, "Oh, you know, we think we could be a good candidate." And they dug a little deeper, and it turns out that, well, as many of you know, Bethlehem is known as the Christmas city. It was founded on Christmas Eve. The name is Bethlehem. It's super Christmassy. You know, if you go around town right now, we have that great connection with Christmas. And it turns out that Tonabayashi was one of the big glass ball manufacturers in Japan, and they made a lot of Christmas ornaments. So there was just that natural Christmas connection, and the two governments got together and formed the sister city, and we've been doing it since 1964, and we hope to be doing it for another 50 years.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. So on that note, we have a wonderful opportunity to taste some delicious catered Japanese goodies. Haha's Kitchen, just outside of Philadelphia, delivered fresh today. So we have a 15-minute break for you all to get up, mingle. This is your chance to get connections, exchange business cards in the traditional Japanese way, or connect via Facebook or any social media. But we'll start with a break for 15 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll start our second portion with Sean Kent Hayashi and the workshop. So be ready to mingle. Enjoy.
During the break, if you have a chance, please pick up those pamphlets from Japan. Usually government pamphlets are boring, but this one is good. It features Tokyo Olympics, lots of photos, judo, karate. And also we have the Japanese version with the, so-called the hiragana on top of kanji. So if you wanna, can you read? At least through hiragana you can read. So it's a very good material for your Japanese language study. So please pick them up. And with the full respect to the pamphlets from U.S. Japan Council as well. Thank you.
In my office of 100 people, it's a development office. We do fundraising and a whole bunch of stuff. And I saw her last name. It said Hayashi on the book cover. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a Japanese last name. And I Google her and I look her up. And sure enough, on her LinkedIn, it said Lehigh Valley or Pennsylvania, and I'm going, oh my gosh, she's here? And I reached out and connected via a LinkedIn message. Of course, it's a random cold email message, but she graciously was open to meet with me and hear me out. And 6 months later, here we are, being able to warmly welcome Sean Kent Hayashi to impart her wisdom as a coach, a distinguished speaker, a distinguished author. So we're really, really blessed to have her here, and I would love to welcome you to the podium.
Thank you. Are you as blown away by what Mickey has accomplished as I am? Yes. Amazing when you think about, yay Mickey. Amazing when you think about what she has accomplished and her vision for what she has done here. Many years ago, when I was 6 years old, in fact, my grandmother put a globe in front of me. It looked something like this globe, and she said to me, we're going to go on a very special trip, and you get to decide where we're going to go. Where would you like this adventure to take us? Well, what she didn't know was that in my classroom at school, a new student had recently joined us, and she was Japanese. She didn't speak any English, And so I immediately, without even looking at the globe, said, I already know where we're going to go. We're going to go to Japan. My little 6-year-old brain thought that if I decided to go there, I would be able to help her learn how to speak English and make friends and create a home. Now, this was really important to me because my family moved pretty much every year, year and a half. And so this notion of building a home was so important to me, and I wanted to help her. What I didn't know in that moment was what a huge impact this one question would have on me. Where do you want to go when you turn 14? From the time I was 6 until I was 14 years old, we hosted Japanese exchange students, Japanese PhD students. My grandmother had them living in her home, and my family had them living in our home. And the agreement was that when I went to Japan and studied in Japan, I would be able to stay in their homes. When I was 14 years old, I had an amazing, life-changing experience of getting to go and live and study in Japan. This question of where would you like to go? It's such an important one because when we start playing with the question, we begin to vision new things for ourselves. We begin to create new things for ourselves. Deb Gamelin, in her PhD program, looked at what happens when you ask people, where do you want to go in your careers? What do you want your career? What do you want your work to look like? And in her PhD research, she was able to arrange for a company called Humana to allow her to audio tape and videotape conversations between managers and employees when they were asked the question about where would you like to go in your career. Deb's research found some fascinating things. For the most part, when you ask a woman, where would you like to go? When the manager says, where would you like to go in your career? What would you like to do? Women tend to say, where would you like me to go? What would you like me to do? How can I help my team? Men, on the other hand, have a tendency to say, well, I've never had access to this particular skill, I'd like an opportunity to do that. I don't know much about this other area of the company, I'd like exposure to that. Can you help introduce me to people in this part of the company? In other words, women have a tendency to say, how can I be helpful? And men have a tendency to say, this is the specific skill, these are the specific relationships that I want to build. Just this past week, I was doing a coaching project at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. I was working with 2 vice presidents who have the opportunity to do some significant professional development work in 2020. And the bank is making an investment in them, and they were seated together. And I asked the male senior vice president, what would you like to focus on in your own professional development in 2020? He said, I'd like more opportunity to do research. I would like the opportunity to do more writing. I want more visibility on the projects that I'm working on. He listed out very specific things. I turned to the female who has the same job and asked her, and she said, I would like to do whatever makes the most sense for my team. How can I help my team? And I said, I've got to tell you about Deb Gamelin's research. Where would you like to go? It's really important that we all learn how to answer this question in a more specific way. And when we think about women and what we're doing in our lives and in our careers, it's so important that we have a vision for ourselves. Fortunately, when I was in my 20s, I was working for an investment banking company, and my boss gave me the opportunity to work with an executive coach One of the challenges, the assignments that the executive coach gave me was to create a list of 100 experiences, things, opportunities that I wanted to create in my own life. You'll notice that there is blank paper at your tables. I'd like you to pass out a sheet of paper to each person at your table, and you'll notice too that there are markers, lots of markers on your tables. I'd like you to grab some markers, write your name at the top of your page, and I'm going to have you begin right now to create your own That's For Me list. So I'll be quiet for just a moment and get you to start on your own page. So you're going to write your name at the top of the page. This is just for you. Nobody else is going to look at your That's For Me list. What are some experiences you'd like to create? Maybe places you would like to go. What are some skills you would like to develop? What are some opportunities? Maybe some people you would like to meet. Adventures you want to create. Conversations you want to have. I'll be quiet here for just a moment and give you the opportunity to think about this for yourself. Begin writing. And if you're missing a piece of paper, wave at me, I'll bring you some. I call this a That's For Me list. Some people call it a bucket list. Other people might call it a dream list. You're welcome to call it anything you want to. There's lots of markers. I've got a box full of them, so if you want a different color than the one you've got, say so. You might list a place you'd like to go, an adventure you'd like to have, maybe a person you'd like to have a better relationship with. And it might not be someone's specific name, maybe it's the type of person or somebody with a particular background. Maybe a skill. Would you like to learn a specific skill? Project management skills, engineering skills. Anything. It does not have to be related to your career. It's anything about your life. And there's lots of paper, so when you run out of room on that paper, say so, and grab another sheet, keep adding to it. Initially, when I was assigned this activity by my coach, I thought perhaps it was just about tangible things. And then I began to realize it was way beyond tangible things. It's the attributes, the qualities, the traits that I would want to create in my life. It's designing your life, it's designing your work, it's designing your relationships. So you might think about values that you want to instill in yourself or in others around you. Keep writing. What do you want to create? Maybe there's a special gift you'd like the opportunity to give someone. You could write that on your list.
How realistic do you want this to be?
I just was asked, how realistic do you want this to be? I don't want you to limit yourself in terms of being able to daydream a little bit. You might not necessarily know how something might come about yet, but go ahead and put it on the list. So at the time that I was assigned this activity, I worked with my coach, my executive coach, each week. And I came back the next week very excited because I had 20 things on my list. Anybody remember how many the coach told me to have? 100. That's right, 100. Put up at the top of your list, create a list of 100 items. And I came back with 20. But I was very excited because I said, you know what, I am not a particularly materialistic person. If I get these 20 things, I'll be very, very happy. My coach said to me, Sean, you just decided to make your life smaller. You just created your own glass ceiling. I gave you the opportunity to create a big vision for yourself, and you're telling me that you want a smaller vision for yourself. Why would you do that, Sean? He said, don't come back to the coaching session next week if you don't have at least 100 items on your list. Now again, this isn't entirely about materialism, it's about you really thinking out, what are the pieces of my life that are important to me? What do I want to create? What would enable me to feel like I'm an adventurer? What would enable me to feel like I am creating something meaningful and important and useful? Keep writing on your list as I'm talking. Ideas may bubble up for you in this conversation that we're in today. Keep adding them to your list. One of the things that I heard about the same time that I was doing this was the power of affirmations. Any of you ever experienced or worked with the power of affirmations? Raise your hand if so. All right, so the concept behind the power of affirmations is that you begin to affirm in your thinking that doors will open and that things can happen and that you can create this thing on your list. Would somebody be willing to share one of the items that you have on your list, and I'll show you how you might create an affirmation about that? Yes?
I'll share. What am I to meet more people?
Okay, so you'd like to meet more people, and so an affirmation around that would be, I'd like the opportunity, or I'm open to the opportunity to meet more people. So thank you. Your wish is going to happen today. So you'd like the opportunity to meet more people, that goes on your That's For Me list, and then you start to affirm that you believe that that can happen. I believe I can meet more people. And you start to have self-talk like this. So I heard some stories about people who started using affirmations and amazing things were happening for them. But I, at the time, was very skeptical about this idea of affirmations. And so I decided that one of the items that was on my That's For Me list was I wanted a beautiful rug. Something that would be gorgeous. And clearly you know if you have a rug or not. But I had no budget for a rug and I didn't have a rug. But I decided I was going to test this idea of affirmations. And so I would begin to visualize myself having a beautiful rug. And when I was in places where I would see a beautiful rug, I would start to say, that's for me. That's for me. Now, sometimes I would be in places where it wasn't appropriate to do so in a grand gesture. But in other times, I could say, yes, that's for me, I want that. Now, I'm not quite sure how this works, but frankly, I don't understand how my mobile phone works. I don't understand how it is that I can be in Japan and call my son in Philadelphia, and we can be speaking to each other at the same time using my little mobile phone. Does anybody happen to really understand how that works? And most of us don't, but yet we do it every day. And most of us don't really understand how the light switch works either. We just know that if you turn it on and off, it works. But how it's actually happening behind the scenes, we don't quite understand. All right, well, I would say to you that there's some power in affirming and starting to think about things in a new way. So there I was, starting to affirm and think about having a new rug. I was very skeptical, but I was doing it. And on one Saturday morning, as I was walking through Bloomingdale's on my way to an appointment, I saw a sign. It said sale in the Oriental Rug Department. I thought, I'm going to go and stand there, and that's for me, some of the beautiful rugs. As I walked into the store, there were lots of people working in it. It was a very busy day, and I'm standing in a stack of beautiful rugs, and have you been in a rug store where they flip the rugs for you? Yes. Okay, so that's what was happening. They're flipping, several of them are flipping the rugs for me, and that's for me. And we get to the one where everything about it, the colors, everything's perfect. And I say, would you go back to the beginning of the pile and just tell me what are the prices on these rugs? And he says, $3,200, $3,600, $3,700, $3,100. He gets to the rug that is the one that's perfect. And he looks at the tag, and then he looks at me, and he looks at the tag, and he says, well, this one says $320. He says, clearly it's mismarked. I said, yeah, that's right. Clearly it's mismarked. And I'm thinking, that's for me, that's for me. About that moment, the only person in the store who has on a suit walks by, and I realize that has to be the manager of this department. And I say, excuse me, sir, I just wanted to point out that this rug right here, I think the price is mismarked. And with all this man could muster, he says to me, the price is not mismarked, it's that less 30%, and we're not changing any of them. Woohoo, that's for me! I bought that rug, loaded it up in my car so fast, and said, wow, there's something about this that works. I don't understand how it works, but when you start to focus on what you want to create, and when you start to think about it and you put mental energy into it, doors start to open. So I want you to look at your list that you've created so far. And what's an item on your list that you would be willing to begin to affirm, that you would be willing to begin to, that's for me, when you see it. Put a star next to it. Something you're willing, a star or a check. Put a star or a check next to something on your list, and keep adding to your list as we're playing with this. So again, my challenge to you, my assignment to you is keep building your list until you get to at least 100. Once you've gotten to 100 and you start creating things, move them to your I did it list. When you've got a really big I did it list, you'll start to notice how confident you are, and you'll start to feel like you can design and create all kinds of things. So again, it's a great way to keep your confidence going, but continue to add to your lists. So this notion that we create our own glass ceilings by the visions that we have for ourselves. It was when I got into the 80s on my own list that my vision for my life began to expand beyond what I had originally been thinking. One of the items that I put on my list somewhere in the 90s was I wanted to have a really special vacation experience with my father. Now, I'd lived with my father for most of my life, but I'd never done a vacation just the two of us. And frankly, I didn't think much about it at the time that I wrote it on the list, but it was just one of those things. Something powerful happens though. You put the idea out there, amazing things start to happen. The following year, it was Father's Day, and I asked my father, I would like to get you something for Father's Day that would be really special for you. I'm not sure what that might be. Of course, I'm thinking a fishing rod. And I say to him, what would that look like? And he said, I think it would be fabulous for us to go on a tour of the Grand Canyon, just the two of us. Could that be the gift? And he says, I'll pay for it, but your gift would be your time. And when I got back from that trip, it was a really special trip with my father. When I got back from that, I bumped into my That's For Me list and realized, again, these things are happening. The things on my list, I'm checking them off. You'll begin to see that happens too. So don't create your own glass ceilings by thinking that there are limits. You might find doors opening that you couldn't have even expected at the time that you wrote something on your list. So first piece is knowing what you want, allowing yourself to play with the question, what is it that I would like to create? Where do I want to go? Imagine the globe has been put in front of you and you are asked, where would you like to go? Imagine your boss is asking you, what would you like the opportunity to do or explore next year? Can you answer that specifically? When we can, then we need to start to find role models, mentors, people who inspire us. So I love what you said, hey, I want to meet more people. I want to meet people who are inspiring me into the next visions of what's possible. Those are role models. And we need to begin to tell our own stories about what's happening for us or what we want to create. Your That's For Me list helps you to design stories that you can connect with other people around. Anybody know how human beings are a lot like carp? And I bet you never thought of yourself as being too much like a beautiful fish like this, did you? Anybody want to guess? How are we like these kind of fish?
Unique by design.
They're all unique by design, and so are we. What else?
Grow according to the size of our pond.
We grow according to the size of our ponds. You put one of these into a little bowl, and it stays little. You take that exact same fish, and you put it into a much larger pond, and it grows big. The same thing happens to us. We grow to the size of the goals. We grow to the size of the dreams that we allow ourselves to create. This is why it's so important to create a robust, inspiring, exciting That's For Me list. Stuart Friedman wrote a book called Total Leadership. Anybody familiar with Stuart Friedman's work? In this book, he outlines the importance of creating what he calls four-way wins. A four-way win is when your work or your contribution in the world, some of you may say, hey, I'm not employed outside my home. That's fine. The contribution that you're making, raising a family, home and family, community and self. A four-way win is when you're able to get an activity that you are engaged in that connects in a way that brings all of these up a level, a zinger, if you will. I'll give you an example of a four-way win that began to emerge for me after this idea clicked with me. My son at the time was going into 9th grade in high school. And I wanted the opportunity to do something, an activity with him that would help him to feel like he was giving back to the community. And I also had a passion for reading and helping young students, young people to feel like they could read. I was dyslexic, and as a first grade student, I really struggled to learn how to read. So I have a passion for helping young people realize, identify dyslexia, and then get over it, learn how to read well. And I had a passion for helping my son. And so I asked him one day, what is an activity that we could do together that would enable us to give back to our community? And he said, why don't we work with therapy dogs? And so he and I began to train our dogs to be therapy dogs, and we started the Tail Wagging Readers program so that young people could learn about the program, read to a dog in a non-judgmental way, and then also every child who came to the program would get their own book. The research was quite clear from my work that a child who had access to books while they were growing up were much more likely to be readers and to want to be educated. So for me, this became a real passion, and my son and I did it together, and it was an example of a four-way win. Another one that I realized that was really important to me and my family was hosting exchange students. I enjoy hosting exchange students. How many of you have ever hosted or been an exchange student? All right, several hands go up here. Yes, it's a wonderful life experience. And so I noticed myself earlier when people were talking about ways in which we could create more community, I found myself saying, I'm willing to host a Japanese student. I'm willing to do that. But this idea of expanding your world through the activities that you take on. So I want you to, right now, find a partner. This is going to be a really quick activity. I want you to find somebody you haven't spoken with yet. Now, Ron, this is going to be hard for you because I noticed earlier on, I think you said hello to everybody. But see if you can find somebody that you haven't spoken with yet. And just share a vision of an aha, an insight, something on your That's For Me list that is bubbling for you right now. Just giving you an opportunity just to talk about that. So you're just being a sounding board, you're just listening to each other. You're gonna have about 5 minutes for this activity. So you get to meet somebody you don't know yet and share with them something on your That's For Me list. But you're also looking to see, what else could I add to my list? So keep thinking, what else can I add to my list? So I'm going to have you stand up. You've got about 5 minutes for this activity. And I have a duck call that I will do when it is time for us to come back together. You will hear me do this duck call. So go ahead, stand up, chat with somebody you don't know, share something on your list.
There's a lot of people who are making and engaging with the people that I know that went to my their job is whatever they lived and breathed, just talk, whatever. It's just feel like I think I'm part of theirs.
So keep adding to your That's For Me list here. Maybe you just had an inspiring insight, something else you'd want to add to your list. Has anybody put anything on your list so far that is a big wow? Like, I didn't even know that I wanted that. I didn't even know that I was bubbling about that, and here it now is on my list. Anybody have something like that? I'm seeing some nods, slight nods. Okay. We're going to continue building on this idea. So building on your That's For Me list, what we're going to do next is create a poster for each person. So you'll notice that on your tables, there's Post-it note flip chart paper. Now, some tables don't have any yet, but I've got them all over here. And so each person is going to get their own piece of Post-it note paper. And again, there's lots of markers around the room, so you can make this as colorful as you would like to. We're going to hang these on the walls. They can be on the walls in here, and they can also be on the walls in the hallway. Let me show you what it's going to look like. So you see a sample here. So you're going to put your name at the top of the Post-it paper. Then your contact information if you're willing to share it. So you might have a phone number, you might have an email address. Then I could give, share, teach, or demonstrate. In other words, this is the section of the page where you're going to say, here's something that I'm interested in, that I'd be willing to talk with you about or share with others. It might be something that you would teach. Maybe you have a great recipe for a particular Japanese dish that you would enjoy sharing. All right, the next section is, I would like help with, or I want to learn. I've already heard a couple of you saying, I want to learn better language skills. I've heard some of you say I want to learn to speak English better. I've heard some of you say I want to learn to speak Japanese better. There's some opportunities here, and we're going to start to be able to see where those connect the dots are as a result of doing this activity. But you're going to start by completing your own. Now again, just to bring it alive, I've created one that's mine. So my name, Sean Kent Hayashi, my contact information, my phone number, my email address. I could share, give, teach, or demonstrate tips on writing a book, how to connect, how to work with editors and proofreaders, tips on training a puppy or selecting the best dog for you and your family. Again, these are things that I like to talk about. So you'll see there's lots of them here. And then next, I would like to learn or I would like help with. And so I specifically fill out some of the things from the That's For Me list that you would like to bring alive. We're going to hang these on the wall, and then you'll see the next part of the activity, what happens. It gets really fun here. It gets more fun the more detail you put on your sheet. I'll point out that there's some tables here that you could use, tables along the side there. So go to work on your own sheet. You've got about 5 minutes right now to create your own. You're welcome to go ahead and hang it on the wall too and fill it out on the wall. As I said, you can use the hall and you can use the walls in here in this room. So go to it.
Yeah, if you have access to New York Times, there was an interesting article about it's about the low percentage of female students there, but it's a very conservative Tokyo. But it's considered to be institution to develop and provide society the government force. So traditionally, many practices, the political or the government agencies, ministries,
So look at your That's For Me list and make sure that you're putting items from your That's For Me list. Things that you could share, maybe experiences you want to do with someone. Make sure that gets put on your list.
they are eager to provide English to be able to I think you have a very good chance of studying at Toda as long as you have good record and also the duties. So one
Make sure you think about what you would like help with. It's that question, where would you like to go? What skills would you like to learn? What capabilities would you like to expand? What are your goals in 2020? Write that on the second part of your list. So you've just got a few more minutes to finish up. So I would ask that you really push yourself here to think about what are some things that you would like on the second part of the list.
I'm not encouraging.
So you'll hang them up. You could hang them up right up here, right next to mine there. Would be great. You can hang them on the walls. Just come right around the room. So I want you to think about what are some connections you would like. So for example, one of mine that I said that I would like to learn or help with is I would like suggestions for great Japanese food places in Philadelphia, the Lehigh Valley. I would like suggestions on how to help women in Japan grow in their professional careers and develop new skills. I would like suggestions on where to take my son to visit when I'm in Japan working. So again, just sharing these so that you can think about your own That's For Me list and connecting the dots. What does it look like? In just a few moments, you'll be hanging yours up on the wall if you haven't already. Once you have yours hanging on the wall, then you start to walk around and look at other people's. This is where you may want to, you're going to want to do two things here. You may want to take out your phone and take a picture of those that you see where you want to follow up. I might look at Ron's and say, Ron says that he could help in choosing wine and cuisine options. And I might take a picture of this, and then I could reach out to Ron after this and say, Ron, let's get together for a glass of wine and talk about cuisine options. So it helps me to connect the dots on things that he would be interested in. So again, go ahead and hang yours up on the wall. You can also write on someone else's. So if there's some place where you see a connect the dots and you say, wow, this is really great, you can take one of the smaller pens, not one of the big huge markers, but one of the smaller markers, and you can write your name and phone number next to that item on their list. So for example, you said you want to meet more Americans, and I would write my name next to that and say I'd be happy to help make that happen. So go ahead and hang yours up on the wall and start walking around and looking at other people's. You're looking for places where you can connect. We're looking at how you can build community by building relationships. I'm so excited by your That's For Me list. You have a beautiful That's For Me list, young lady. So again, use this opportunity to go read other people's charts now and see where you can connect dots in building community. Where are some of those places? Maybe you're interested in food and you want to explore. Maybe you're interested in language, and maybe you're interested in building new skills. See where the connections in the room are. Again, feel free to write your name and your contact information on someone else's sheet, or take pictures of their sheet so that you can follow up afterwards. That's the point of this, is helping you build a community around your passions and your interests. I was just asked, can you write on both halves? Yes, you can write anywhere next to anything on someone's chart. Just write your own name and how they can contact you if they want to follow up. So everybody will be able to take their own chart when you leave today.
The old way. Railroads. And then, nope, and then that's how old? Oh, how old she is? Oh, no, I see. I need to translate. See, I missed some words. It's 2 years. Yeah, and then next month I'm going I'm retired.
Try to look at everybody's chart and get at least 4 or 5 people that you could follow up with. Notice that there are charts hanging on the walls over here as well. So we've got another few minutes of this, so please make sure you look at everybody's chart. So we've got just another few minutes here.
So how
So we're going to have you wrap up in the next 2 minutes. So if you haven't looked at a chart, go look at it, see if there's a connection there. And then within the next 2 minutes, I'll have you come on back to your seats.
So how do you that's on the person side.
All right, come on back.
That's mine. We'll talk about it. All right, I want to see some of these. You didn't do it.
All right, we're going to get started again. Come on back if you would. Woohoo! You'll have more time for talking with each other here in just a few minutes. So come on back. I'm very excited because I had the opportunity to write my name on a bunch of these sheets, and these are places where I would be very interested in following up with you And hopefully you found other connections too. For example, there's one back there, somebody wants to create a book club. I'll bet there are several folks in the room who would probably enjoy a book club related to Japanese issues, and I think they even said they'd be willing to read in both English and in Japanese. What are some connection aha insights that have just occurred for you? What's something you're excited about that connected the dots today in our workshop for you? Anybody willing to share an example? Yes?
Well, as I said when I was on the panel, I participated in the JET program, and a couple of the people who work at Lehigh or Muhlenberg said, hey, could you come and talk to our students about the JET program, which I haven't really thought about doing. So I think that would be good for them to hear about.
Excellent. So expanding community, expanding the JAJAJA community. What else? Other connect the dots, ahas, something you're excited about? I'll tell you something I'm excited about. I saw your That's For Me list. Where's your That's For Me list? It's taped over here on one of these things. And how many items do you think you have on your That's For Me list at this moment? About 40, maybe even 50. And I am very inspired by you that you just made it happen. And as you start to check those things off your list, very, very exciting to start thinking this way. Woohoo! Good job. Yes. I'd like to ask you for comments. What have you gotten out of this? Or questions. So comments. What have you gotten out of it? Or questions. Yes?
I have an observation.
Yes.
That this is better than social media. I mean,
You're right.
it would have been hard, you ask on Facebook, nobody replies. But there are specific things here that were helpful to know.
Good. Yes. It's fun to come together with people who have similar interests or to find our interests, right, to discover. And so I congratulate all of you for being the kind of people who are on an adventure, who are willing to meet new people, who are willing to have new visions for yourself. So congratulations to you for that. Yes. What else? How about another aha or insight?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you recommend sort of making sure that you follow through with all these things that talked about and done today?
So how do you recommend that we make sure we follow through and actually do it? Well, one of the things is keep that That's For Me list somewhere that you see it regularly. I keep mine on my computer, on my home screen, and it says That's For Me list. And I keep it in a file, and when I accomplish something, I move it to the I did it part of the list. And I think I have 30-something pages of I did it's now. I've been doing this for a long time, but again, it feels really good, so start to think about that. Challenge yourself to keep adding to your That's For Me list. See, it's never done. As long as you're living, as long as you're creating adventures and inspired, you're going to keep growing your That's For Me list. So that's number one. Number two, see yourself as a steward of your network. See yourself as a steward of the relationships in your life. And if you'll begin to say, I want to help be one of those people who's really good at connecting people, while I might not necessarily have an interest in such and such, I'm going to be open to learning about people who do so that I can help connect people. When you see yourself as that kind of connector, you start to build really great relationships and you serve other people in meaningful ways. And you're welcome to take your own chart with you today when you leave. But I would just encourage you to look at who's somebody here. Come up with at least 3 people that you would like to follow up with as a result of the JAJAJA community. And also I would encourage you to think about who's not here today that you wish was here. If you reach out and invite them to come to the next JAJAJA event, we'll make it even bigger and we'll keep expanding. Yeah. How about one more question or comment? So I'll close by saying to you, if we don't create our own lives intentionally, then we're living somebody else's agenda. And I would just strongly encourage you to begin to live from the place of, what do I love? Let yourself play in that question. What do I love? What excites me? What creates a feeling of passion and inspiration for me? Add those things to your That's For Me list, read that regularly, and keep yourself in that mindset. And I want to go back to something that I mentioned when I first started. When you, 6 years old, get the globe put in front of you and you're asked, where do you want to go? And you start to think that way, and you start to find kindred spirits that way, life gets exciting. So when somebody like Mickey shows up and says, hey, I want to create something, and she describes this amazing community that doesn't exist that she wants to create, I can't help but get inspired by her. And I'm inspired by you that you chose to show up and be a part of this. I'm inspired by the committee that I've been a part of that's been working on this. So you all deserve a big, huge kudos for what you've done, and a big thank you. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you all today, and Mickey, thank you for your wisdom and your inspiration. Woohoo!
Wow. I don't know about you, but I am completely moved by all of your inputs, your amazing wisdom. Across the room, you can see that there's so many connections between all of us, and it's up to us to actually take that first step and reach out, shake a hand, smile. The power of that can really build a community. And I want to close by mentioning a few things. So again, building home away from home is not just for those that physically move from place to place. I'm sorry. But it really means it really means a lot to have everybody here and seeing the connections. And it's really, the home starts from inside of us, and a lot of it is the love that we have for the Japanese culture and the language and all of the values that we share within our closest families. But we all choose to, you know, create a bigger family, and this is it. So I really, really encourage you all to continue and be a part of this JAJAJA community. And we're, you know, if you've already subscribed to being part of it, thank you, and be on the lookout for upcoming events. I wanted to close with a few things. So all of you should have received a raffle ticket. We've got a raffle basket. If you haven't gotten a raffle ticket, now is the time. It's not too late. Please. Yeah? Everybody got a raffle ticket? Okay. So I'm going to ask our distinguished guest to pick out 2 tickets. Oh, maybe one more? Last ones? Last minute? Everybody good? Did somebody not get a raffle ticket? Anybody else? Good. Yeah, we've got 2 raffle baskets. One is full of Japanese goodies, like little snacks, like waranomachi, things that you typically kind of grow up with. And then a larger basket was thanks to a lot of our task force members bringing together some goodies.
So everybody's tickets with you?
All good? Okay.
Okay.
All right. So first one is for the smaller basket, but just as sweet. Please be the distinguished guest to pick out one.
I have a tremendous honor. Okay.
All right. So the number is 2233886. Whoa! the little basket there. And for the grand prize, one more. Okay. All right, the grand prize goes to 223-3865. 65. Oh! There's a big basket in the back, and it's full of a bunch of goodies that you can take a look at. And there's a secret little envelope with free admission to the Shofuso House. The Japan American Society of Greater Philadelphia takes care of this wonderful and amazing landmark that we have in our backyard in Philadelphia. It's the Japan House, the Shofuso House. So please feel free to go check it out, but there's definitely opportunity to organize a trip there with the JAJAJA community as well. So thank you, Murakami-san. Okay, so other than that, last thing, I want to take a group photo. So I'm going to challenge all of you to step up and tier yourselves into maybe 3 or 4 rows. We'll see, and we'll move this table so we'll be able to take a group photo from the aerial angle up there. So please get together, and then it'll be open for networking as well. So thank you all for coming.
And I want to point out, somebody over here could teach how to knit, and somebody over there wants to learn how to knit, and somebody here wants to be able to give a good speech, and somebody up there says they can have a good speech how to give a good speech. I get so excited by connecting.
Alright, so let's try
You want to know about the dog? I'll tell you. I haven't been there in a while. No, I went there. No.
Can you see?
But I listened to it. Oh.
All right.
What? No, no, the panels. The panels. Samantha, you're in the front because you're a panelist. Okay, who's left? Yeah, oh, you're already there. Yeah, you should be right here. And Sean should be here too. Hey, there you go.
Vicky, you're right there in the center.
Everybody get together.
Come on.
Everybody good?
I can tell.
Yeah, how's your cousin?
Okay, one more. You want to say everybody good? Okay.
Cherry blossoms.
Ja, ja, ja.
Ja.
Ja. Is that good?
Wait, can I take a couple more?
One more. Everybody open your eyes. All good? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll
Everybody, please take itoen, ocha, or handouts in the back of the room. There's plenty. And don't forget to grab a JAJAJA sticker. We've got these beautiful little JAJAJA stickers too. So thank you so much.